Hi Amrita, hi Rensden.
Good evening, Rekha ma'am. Srividya here.
Hi. Why
Hi.
don't you change your name then?
Oh, okay. Wait, I'll just.
Yeah, it shows Amrita Rajpal, so we need to change that.
I see.
Rensden, are you there? Srividya, the picture hasn't changed though.
Oh, actually, I'm using this account to live stream the event on YouTube. So it might permanently change if I change the picture.
I should have told Amrita to change her picture. Actually, if Rensden is not there, I would have told him.
Hi, ma'am.
Hi Rensden. Rensden, we are having Sri Vidya with Amrita's photo.
Yeah, she has logged in because YouTube is not working on my system. So I've asked her to just log in and start the YouTube link, and she will log off from there.
Oh, you mean Sri Vidya will log out from there and enter?
Yeah. After we have started the program,
Yeah.
YouTube link will start working, and after that she can log off.
And then come as normal, like
Yeah. Yes.
because it's already showing live on YouTube.
Yes, ma'am.
So it started on YouTube, you mean?
It has, but we are still waiting. If there are some technical problems, then she will be there to sort out. So after 5 minutes, she can log out.
And what time is Anil sir joining?
By 4:30 mostly, ma'am.
Why you haven't given him a time or what?
Yes. I'll just be back.
Hi Vaishnavi. Hi Tanvi.
Ma'am, how are you? Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Tanvi. Vaishnavi,
Okay, ma'am.
Namaskar, Anil sir.
Namaskar, how are you?
Very well, sir. Thank you. How are you?
I'm absolutely fine. I'll open up the video as soon as you start. I'm around, okay?
Okay.
हेलो अरे 9 लोग हैं इसमें
Vaishnavi, try your mic again.
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yeah, but very soft.
Okay.
You're fine. Your hair is fine, Ren. Oh,
Good
Julius
evening,
sir is
sir.
come. He's not connected yet. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
How are you, sir?
Hi. Has the speaker come?
Yes, sir. He's there.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you very much.
We have met earlier.
Yes, sir, I recall.
At dinner with our Sunil Mehta and his
Yes,
wife.
yes.
You're still in Muktangan?
No, there was some technical issue. I had to go out because there was some technical issue with regard to former civil servants and all.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so even in any case, I was of the view that I could be of greater assistance to Muktangan without being formally associated. But when I talk to somebody for assistance, if I'm a part of that organization, it takes some time.
ये लिंक भेजा है मैंने व्हाट्सएप पे सब लोग
And if I am not a part of that, then I can be of a much greater assistance because they're doing such wonderful work.
Yes.
And I never wanted to feel handicapped in terms of helping them. But being a part of that trust, if I speak to somebody in the government, then I'm speaking on their behalf rather than on my personal behalf, which I can now. I mean, you've been in the ship, so you would know how it works.
Yes.
So it's much better for me to be out of it and then promote their cause than be in it and talk about them.
Yes. I think here they have appreciated our municipal commission. I think they have appreciated the work they have done. You know, the municipal schools used to always get the worst results. But
Yes.
now some of the best results have come with this
Yes.
particular organization.
I have
They ask
absolutely
them
no
to
doubt.
take over more schools, but they can't.
No, I have absolutely no doubt about the contribution. Even when I was Secretary Education, Government of India, when I saw their work, I was extremely impressed with what they were doing.
Yeah.
And that is why post-retirement, that was the only trust that I joined. I did not take up, many had approached me. But then subsequently, I thought that I probably would be of greater assistance to them outside of the trust than being a part of the trust.
So, Renzen, you got all the students present?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So we are on YouTube also, so that's how he's diverting there.
Oh, okay. Which college is this?
So this is R.A. Podar College, sir, from Matunga.
Right.
And how are you keeping health-wise, sir? I hope you are fine.
No, now physically I'm not the same anymore. Even from when we met, I think I have gone down quite a bit. So I've stepped down from almost all the organizations I was with, even including charitable institutions, Happy Home and School for the Blind, all those I have now got down. Even this present one in which we are participating, PCGT, I used to be chairman for many years. I have now Mr. Raja, you know Raja? He is much senior to you.
I
73
can't
batch.
guess.
I think he's 73 batch of I.S. from Avakada, Maharashtra.
Okay.
He has taken over from me.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. Mr.
Just from last week, sir.
From last week. Yeah.
Shall we start?
Yes,
That's
please.
right. Who is it? Sorry, have I delayed the proceedings? I hope not. Come on, start.
A very good afternoon to all the respected citizens of this democratic country, India. On behalf of I.P.S College of Commerce and Economics, Autonomous, well known for nurturing intellect and creating personality, dedicated towards providing quality education, whose foundation stone was laid by its parental body, Shikshan Prasarak Mandali, which was established 131 years ago. We, the volunteers of R.A. College NSS unit under our program officer, Dr. Mrs. Vinita Pimpre ma'am, in collaboration with Public Concern for Governance Trust, welcome you all for today's session, Dialogue for Democracy, Lessons from Diversity. अंधेरे को मिटाने जोत है लगाई, अंधेरे को मिटाने जोत है लगाई, भारत की लोकशाही को युवाओं तक लाई, भारत की लोकशाही को युवाओं तक लाई. इसने जोड़ा है हम सबको, इसने जोड़ा है हम सबको. यह संस्था एक उदात्त विचार, Public Concern for Governance Trust, was founded by late Mr. B.G. Deshmukh, former Cabinet Secretary, the Government of India, Mr. Julio Ribeiro, former Mumbai Police Commissioner and Director General of Police of Punjab, and Dr. R.K. Anand, pediatrician, former Director of Jaslok Hospital, in order to strive for good governance in the city of Mumbai. Public Concern for Governance Trust has initiated Youth for Governance, a program to sensitize youth on the issues of governance and to develop leadership skills, especially in public activities. It provides a platform for the youth to collectively question, discuss, and initiate action on related issues. Youth for Governance program aims at changing the students' perspective towards ethical conduct in whatever profession they finally may opt for, in government or private sector. Youth for Governance has various programs like RTI program, PCGT dialogues, and Good Governance campaign that mobilize the youth and promote the issues of governance, sexual harassment, eve-teasing, and emerging social concerns of the contemporary world. The PCGT dialogues are followed with series of interactive sessions with eminent personalities with great social conscience. Youth for Governance program helps us to build the students' perspective towards ethical conduct and responsible citizenship. हर अज्ञानी को राह दिखाता, हर अज्ञानी को राह दिखाता है एक ज्ञानी, हर अज्ञानी को राह दिखाता एक ज्ञानी. हम भूले भटकों को नक्शा दिखाता, हम भूले भटकों को नक्शा दिखाता. सोचो कौन है वो? वह है R.A. कॉलेज की प्रिंसिपल डॉक्टर मिसेस शोभना वासुदेवन मैम. Ma'am, we are highly obliged to have you amongst us for today's session. पुलिस की वर्दी शेर कदम, पुलिस की वर्दी शेर कदम. नाम है इनका मिस्टर जूलियो रिबेरो सर, नाम है इनका मिस्टर जूलियो रिबेरो सर. The chairman of Public Concern for Governance Trust, joined the Indian Police Service and rose to be the Commissioner of Mumbai Police. Later, he was promoted to the Director General of Central Reserve Police Force, Director General of Police Gujarat, Director General of Police Punjab, and then an Indian ambassador to Romania. In 1987, he was awarded India's third highest civilian award for his services, Padma Bhushan. Since retirement, Sir has busied himself in social work. Mr. Ribeiro has also titled his autobiography, Bullet for Bullet, My Life as a Police Officer. Sir, we are highly honored to have you amongst us. Sir, I request you to present your views to the youth of this country.
Okay. Thank you. Ishita is your name, is it? What's your name, Ishita? Hello.
Sir, my name is Tanvi.
What? What is your
Sir,
name?
NSS volunteer Tanvi.
Sandeep. Yeah. Okay. So I like the way you speak. I think you will be a good debater and a good elocutionist. Huh? So do you take part in those competitions? You take part in inter-college? Anyway.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I'm very happy to be introducing or being present at this talk by Mr. Anil Swarup. And I've known him earlier also, met him once after he retired, and at a dinner hosted by my our mutual friend, Sunil Mehta, who runs that organization called Muktangan, very good organization which tries to teach the municipal schools. You know, municipal schools are mostly uh, patronized by the poorer people, the people from the slum areas and others. I know most of my policemen's children go to these municipal schools, though they would like to go to some other schools, but I think a school like Muktangan fits in the bill very nicely, and they're doing excellent work, and even Anil Swarup knows about it. Anyway, so what I was a little confused by the heading you have given the subject, and I really do not know uh, what exactly you're meant by it. But I always think about unity in diversity when I was like with Mr. B.G. Deshmukh, the former cabinet secretary, a very good friend of mine. We also started the Mohalla Committee movement in Mumbai, because when I returned from Romania, it was in the end of 93, and we had huge riots in Mumbai after the Babri Masjid was pulled down. So we saw that there was a lot of alienation in the minority community. Mr. Sharad Pawar was the chief minister when I returned, and he said that he had been trying to contact them, trying to get them over, but they're sort of reluctant to meet him. And he was very happy that I had tried to do this myself. And we got the Hindus and Muslims, and the third party was the police. And my old friend Satish Sani was the commissioner when this happened, and a lady called Sushobha Barve, a very committed worker for communal harmony, had accompanied me to meet the commissioner, and the three of us, the commissioner, Satish Sani, Sushobha and I, because Sushobha used to do the legwork, we really began this Mohalla Committee movement. It was a movement. And we got the people together, explained to them that if they indulge in killing, and they also get killed, whereas the people who instigate them, they are in their own offices and other places, and they don't suffer anything. So it struck a chord with them, because they suffered quite a bit, both sides, during those riots. And we were able to keep the peace, I would say, or at least help them to keep the peace. But now, since the last couple of years, they have been telling me, these workers, that it is very difficult. The level of hate which has been created is so much that they really don't know what to do, and all their work is coming to naught. So it is very sad because unless we are all together, we cannot really succeed in our quest to sit on the grand table of the Committee of Nations. So this is in what I know about unity in diversity. It is possible, especially among the poorer people, the ones who really have nothing to win or nothing to lose in particular. So let us see. I do not know. I thought this is what the subject is about, but it might be something much larger. And I would be happy to hear my friend Anil Swarup as to what he has to say to these young people. They are, Podar College was one of the two commerce colleges in my days when I wanted to join, and I joined Sydenham. That was the government college, and we had only Podar as the other commerce college in Mumbai. I later joined the law college, government law. That was the only law college in Mumbai. And now there are so many. I think you just can't count them. So we have progressed quite a bit. And these students are very eager. I can see that they have that great enthusiasm to learn, and we would like them to be good citizens, to be citizens of the future, and we would like them to be good human beings. That is much more important, much more uh, compassionate for other people, to think about others also, to do things for others. This is what PCGT is all about. And I think to a certain extent, we have succeeded because many of the students come back to interact with us, which shows that they are with us in our thoughts and in our actions. So thank you, Mr. Swarup, for accepting our invitation. You're going to speak again after a few days on Saturday when my colleague who has taken over from me as chairman, Mr. Raja, he will be doing the honors. He is the new chairman of PCGT. And I welcome you today, and I would like to hear you, like the students would also very eager to do so. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Ribeiro, sir, for guiding us. General instruction for all the participants to please keep themselves on mute. Also, if they have any questions, please post them on Zoom or YouTube chat box link. लोहे जैसे विचार हो बुलंद, लोहे जैसे इनके विचार है बुलंद, और इनके विचार है अखंड. लोहे जैसे बुलंद और विचार जिनके हो अखंड, लोहे जैसे बुलंद और विचार जिनके हो अखंड, वह है मिस्टर अनिल स्वरूप, former Coal and Education Secretary, Government of India. During his career spanning for 38 years, Mr. Anil Swarup attempted to make it happen. Born in Allahabad, Uttar Pradesh, he earned his master's degree in political science from Allahabad University in 1978, where he was awarded the Chancellor's Gold Medal for being the best all-round student. Before joining the Indian Administrative Service in 1981, he has also served the Indian Police Service for a year. He won the Director's Gold Medal for being the best officer amongst his batch in Lal Bahadur Shastri National Officers Academy. As a civil servant, he held various assignments within both state Uttar Pradesh and central government. During the final years of his career, he served as the Secretary of Government of India in the Ministry of Coal and also has handled the coal scam. Thereafter, he served as the Secretary of School Education and Literacy, where he attempted to foster public-private relationships to improve the quality of school education. As a strategic thinker and an innovative leader, he has won several awards and nominations, and one of the policy change agent by the Economic Times in the year 2010, 2012, 2015, and 2016, respectively. He was selected as one of the 35 action heroes of India from India Today 35 annual edition. He's the founder chairman of Nexus for Good, an initiative towards recognizing positive actions and providing inspirational stories to the society at large to replicate them. He's also the author of Ethical Dilemmas in Civil Servant and also the bestseller, Not Just a Civil Servant. Sir, we are highly obliged to have you amongst us. Sir, I'll request you to present your views on diversity.
Thank you very much, Tanvi, for those very, very kind words. I feel really humbled because what you said, and humbled to be asked to speak before my own role model, icon, Mr. Ribeiro. I met him very late after retirement, but probably I met him much earlier through his writings, through his actions. And I made a bit of an attempt to learn and try and copy what he did. He's an icon for a large number of civil servants that we are. So it's a privilege for me to be speaking in front of him. And I feel really humbled about it. Thank you very much for inviting me here. My young friends and not so young friends. I would believe that everyone is young, but some people would like to feel to be matured enough not to be called as young as some others here are. I agree with Mr. Ribeiro when he says that even I could not really make much out of the topic that you've given me. I was wondering, what should I focus on? What should I talk about? Now that I know the audience, I will digress a bit. I'll touch upon what you asked me to speak about, but I'll talk more to the youngsters here. What they can do, what they can look forward to, how they can do what they want to do. I would rather look at some practical examples of trying to convey to you, using some of my own personal examples, as to how do you move ahead in life. To me, that's most important. There is a reason. You know, all of us can discuss endlessly and talk about what democracy should be, what dialogue should be, what unity and diversity could be. These are all theoretical notions. As a practitioner, I have always believed, let's look at the actual happenings and ideate from there, rather than giving an idea and trying to explain that idea to you. So what I'll try and do today to you, to talk to you and share some of my own personal experience to drive home the agenda that you defined today, the dialogue part, as well as the unity and diversity part. Now, all of us have some drive within. I have absolutely no doubt every individual has a drive within. But unfortunately, when we come into the society and interact with others, we start talking of very big things. You know, I am not against dreaming. I'm myself a great dreamer. But I've always believed that when you dream, you should have your feet firmly on the ground. Because otherwise you'll become a talker, not a walker. And I see that today, almost everyone seems to be talking. In fact, post-retirement, that's precisely what I'm doing. I'm only talking. I may have walked earlier, but now I talk, and many people are talking of ideas. Now, don't take me wrong. I'm not against ideas. What I'm telling youngsters is, yes, you should try and understand those ideas, but you should learn from your experience. The first thing that I'm going to tell you, might shock you a bit. You know, everyone wants to do something for the society, and everyone is extremely concerned about the nation called India. And that's a tragedy. Now, this will shock you, because I'm looking around now and I'm seeing that everyone seems to be talking about nation without doing anything about it. So, देश के बारे में सोच के हमने देश का बेड़ा गर्क कर दिया. I am firmly of the view, you can't do a nut to a nation, you can't do a nut to a society. If you have to do anything, you have to do to yourself. Nothing less, nothing more. Forget about telling others what they got to do. Forget about changing the world, changing the society. Don't become a revolutionary. Just focus on yourself. And this emanates from my understanding of the Mahatma. I think when he spoke these words and when he wrote these words, be the change you wish to see in the world, I think to me, that's the essence of human existence. Every journey has to start with you. The reason is very simple. It's very practical. And whatever I'm going to talk about today is absolute practice. In my career, I discovered very soon that I can't do much to others. But I also discovered along with it that I can do a lot to myself. And the entire journey begins with myself. What can, I did not understand this term aham brahmasmi when I heard it for the first time. It was over a period of time that I started discovering that it's very practical to understand this, because you can't do anything to others, you have to do things to yourself. Because when I evolved as an individual, I saw that everyone seems to be blaming somebody else for his problems. Almost everyone. And then I came across this couplet. Since Hindi was being used, I would take the liberty of taking some couplets from Hindi and Urdu. उम्र भर यही भूल करता रहा गालिब, धूल चेहरे पर थी आईना मलता रहा. You know, and this again is very practical. The reason is that even if there is dust on the mirror, you can't do anything. You can't wipe it off. It is there. You're not created it, somebody else has created it. But you can do a lot to yourself. Now, the next question would be, what can you do to yourself? Because you can't do anything to somebody else. You have to, what can you do to yourself? And how can you do it to yourself? And that is where, I'm so glad Mr. Ribeiro is here. That is where people like Mr. Ribeiro demonstrate that you can do a lot to yourself. And in doing to yourself, you may end up changing the environment around you. But the objective is not to change the environment. Objective is to strengthen yourself, evolve as an individual. खुदी को कर बुलंद इतना कि हर तकदीर से पहले खुदा बंदे से खुद पूछे बता तेरी रजा क्या है. How do you evolve as an individual that you come to be reckoned with? Why does the government want Mr. Julius Ribeiro to become DGP for Punjab? He belonged to Maharashtra cadre. Because he had made his khudi buland to an extent that he came to be desired. He may not himself wanted to come to Punjab. I mean, I don't know whether he agrees with me or not. He would be doing his job. He got his job. He's a Karmveer, he'll do his job. We in this country oft repeat this phrase, but we don't believe in it. We are so obsessed with results that we don't do what we ought to do. And when I look at Mr. Ribeiro, I'm so glad he's here. I mean, as I understood him, this guy was not interested in what's going to happen otherwise, totally focused on the task at hand. And in doing that, he evolved in a person that he came to be demanded. That's what we got to look at. Are we evolving as an individual? Now, whatever little I've understood in my life, I'll share with you. How do you evolve as an individual? The first principle is very simple. The first principle is that a large number of us are so hassled about the days that have gone by. Unfortunately, these days, everyone is trying to recreate history for political and other reasons. But the point is, I don't think anybody listening to me on this platform can change the past. The past is dead and gone. But look at the time that we spent on focusing on something over which we have absolutely no influence. It's dead and gone. But we live in the past. We love to live in the past. We turn to curse the past. Instead of doing that, how about looking at the present part? Because future you don't know. The future is going to build on the bricks that you're going to build now. So you have to be focused totally on the present. And what do you mean by focus? I have always advised youngsters that enjoy the moments that you're in. Love the moments that you're in. I can assure you your future will be built. But if you're living in the past and wasting your time in thinking and brooding over what has gone by, then there is a problem. If you live in the moment that you're in, if you try and make these moments, if you learn out of these moments, then you will grow. The only value that I see of the past is the lessons from the past. Can you learn from the past? That's very, very important. But you have to live in the present. You have to build that present for building your future. So that's one. Number two is what I said earlier, but I place it at number two, because how much time we spend cursing others for our own problems. Now, let us accept for the sake of argument that even if they are responsible, can you do anything about it? They are doing what they will do. I'm forgetting the name, probably it was Eleanor Roosevelt who said that no one can insult me until I feel insulted. No one can insult me until I feel insulted. It totally depends on you. You are the center of universe. Until you want to feel insulted, you feel bad. No one can make you feel bad. So it's you. You have to decide for yourself. Now, the problem that we have today, and very unfortunate problem that we have. In school education also I suffered on account of that, is the competition that we start having with others, without realizing that each one of you sitting here is unique in his own way. The tragedy of competition is that the parents put so much pressure on child to come first in the class. I must confess here, the years that I didn't come first in the class, I used to feel terrible. Now today, in my entire long CV that she read or whatever she read, she didn't mention that I came second in class 5, first in class 6, third in class 7. It doesn't matter. But look at the time when I was there in those classes. I was actually used to get so upset I didn't come first in a class. Ridiculous, absolutely. Little realizing that there is hardly any benefit out of competing with others. In fact, you lose. How do you lose? You lose because if you're not competing with somebody, then you will learn from him. And if there has to be a competition, it has to be with yourself. You have to benchmark yourself and then see from that benchmark, where do you grow? And that's why I appreciate the grading system rather than ranking system. Because in ranking, you are pulling somebody else down to go up rather than pushing yourself up. That's where grading helps. So think over it, whether you should compete, because again, you will be wasting a lot of time in coming first there, whereas you're not improving yourself because you don't realize that each individual, some may be good in literature, the other may be in mathematics, the other in painting, drawing. How do you compete with each other? And why should you compete? As I said, I'm a practitioner. What benefit does it accrue to me? What benefit accrues to me if I'm just competing with somebody else? Benefit accrues to me if I'm improving myself. And in doing so, I land up somewhere. Now, this doesn't happen overnight. I'm sharing this all with you because I've been through that journey. I've suffered in some places and probably benefited as a consequence of my experience. So I'm sharing it with you so that you don't struggle on that front. Don't compete with others. Compete with yourself. That's the point number 3. The next point that I'd like to tell you is that we get hassled over issues over which we have absolutely no control. Look at the amount of time that we spend. I remember when I used to interact with my colleagues and when I was a youngsters, I'm still very fond of cricket, by the way. And I've enjoyed the test match that happened yesterday that India won. But I used to spend and I used to even argue with some of my friends about the shot a particular batsman played. I remember 2 friends of mine fighting with each other for Dhoni having played a wrong shot and India lost that match. Now, that event happened by fighting and arguing over that issue with your friend. Is that going to change? Or will you be able to change? You have to be a practical man if you want to succeed in life, a practical person. Look at whether that argument benefits you. Is it benefiting you? That's the bottom line. It is not, but we are arguing. We argue over so much issue, and I discovered it in a very different way. I just got married and I used to get very rattled with the traffic jams that I used to have. I used to live in Lucknow, and in many places there are traffic jams. Bombay is pretty notorious for it. You'll find some people sitting coolly in a traffic jam because they know they can't do much about it. And when the traffic moves, it moves. But there's some people who get very agitated. Some of them will come out of their car, start shouting at others. No, I was the shouting type. I used to get very agitated. So one day my wife asked me, "तुम इनका कुछ कर सकते हो?" हमने कहा, "हम तो कुछ नहीं कर सकते." तो जब कुछ कर नहीं सकते हो तो अपना खून क्यों जला रहे हो? Now, it's very seminal. Look at the time that we waste over issues over which we have absolutely no control. And, I tell my colleagues in the IS, many of them want to change things. I tell them, if you're a revolutionary, and my suggestion to all of you, those that want to become civil servants, if you're a revolutionary, don't join the civil service. Pick up a jhadu and become a politician. That's the better way of going about it. In civil service, I think the bottom line for me was a quote by Reinhold Niebuhr, an American monk, who said, "Lord, grant me the serenity to accept things I cannot change, courage to change things that I can, and the wisdom to understand the difference between the two." Here again, what I'm trying to tell you is, instead of changing things, if you change yourself, and I keep telling my colleagues as well, that, you must define what you can and focus totally on what you can. And my personal experience tells me that can increases. The moment you start delivering, that's why Mr. Ribeiro, who may have done well in a particular position, suddenly his can increases and he's asked to go to Punjab to handle terrorist problem. I'm again repeating, and I hope he corrects me if I'm wrong, that he would not have asked for a posting there. In my career of 38 years, I never went to any politician for any request. But आप अपनी खुदी को अगर बुलंद कर लेंगे, तो then if there is a coal crisis and they want it to be handled, they want Mr. Anand to come there and join as coal secretary. In fact, I had no clue about coal sector when they posted me as coal secretary. And I rang up a friend of mine. I asked him, "Yaar, ye coal sector kaisa hai?" He said, "Gangs of Wasseypur dekhi hai kya?" So that was my introduction to coal sector, of course, by God's grace. And on account of an absolutely amazing team that I had, we managed to sort out the coal crisis. And thereafter, I was made the education secretary. I used to wonder, why was I made education secretary? Because perhaps the government was looking for the most uneducated, illiterate civil servant to head the education ministry. And they found that in Mr. Anand Swarup, and I was made education secretary. I thought I was coming out of the dark dungeons of coal mines into bright lights of school education, little realizing that it was so much worse in education as compared to coal. Sir, whereas in coal, all the mining was underground and the mafias were overground. In education, all the mafias are underground, eating into the essentials of the society. That's what I discovered in education sector. Well, that's a different story. I won't like to narrate. Those of you who are interested can read my book, Ethical Dilemmas of a Civil Servant, where I narrate the mafias of the school education, which was much worse than the coal mafias because of the damage they are doing to the society. So what I want to tell the youngsters here is that you have to absolutely focus on yourself. And in doing that, you must also realize that how you manage your failures and mistakes. I've yet to come across an individual, and I've met many of them, and I read a lot. I've yet to come across a person who hasn't committed a mistake, who hasn't had failures in life. I think people who succeed in life are those who are able to learn from their mistakes and they're able to manage their failures. No one, whether it's Robert Kennedy, you read Mahatma Gandhi's Experiments with Truth. I mean, he committed so many mistakes and he had the courage. That was his greatness. He had the courage to admit those mistakes. No harm in doing that. So you have to learn from your mistakes. Don't get cowed down because failure is very natural. When you do something, you are bound to fail in some cases. Who the hell in this world has succeeded everywhere? No, he hasn't. No one. Everyone has failed at some point in time. People quote Winston Churchill. You know, the guy, whether he was there or elsewhere, earlier he failed. He failed when World War was going here. There were battles that were to be fought and he was distraught on a number of occasions. So there are mistakes and failures that everyone commits. You can't lose the entire war on account of losing a battle or two here and there. Those losses will come. So the war of life will continue and you have to learn from those mistakes and move on. So in these few words, what I have tried to do is to convey to you what you can possibly do. Now let me come to the subject matter of the day and relate it to what you can do in such situations. Now I am a firm believer that all the wisdom does not reside in me. I'm still learning today as I interact. I heard Mr. Rivero. I'll hear some of you. I am still learning. The reason is very simple because I know I don't have all the wisdom in the world. Obviously, I don't have information, but I don't even have the wisdom. So there's a lot to learn. But how do you learn? You will learn only if you have a dialogue. If you think you have arrived in life, then you won't have dialogue. And to me, hence, interaction and dialogues are very, very important, even with your adversaries, even with your enemies. Because my philosophy is very simple and it's very practical. Why should I deprive myself of the wisdom that I may get from my adversary if I interact with him? Why shouldn't I talk to him? And look at what is happening. I'll give you two examples here. One comes out from my book, from my personal experience. The other, the farmers' agitation. I hope I'm not out of time. Please stop me because, as I said, talking is the easiest thing. If I start speaking, I keep speaking because you don't have to spend anything. You have a captive audience and you're speaking. So if I run out of time, please stop me. So I will just give two examples here. When I took over as coal secretary, at that point in time, there was all hell had broken loose. So we had to come up with a legislation to enable auction of coal blocks. Now the problem was that in Rajya Sabha, the ruling party did not have majority. And no legislation was getting cleared in the Rajya Sabha. But this legislation was important because Supreme Court had come up with an order, a couple of orders. And in order to carry out these options, I needed a law. Of course, there was an ordinance route also, an ordinance come out, but because this would require more than 6 months, so we had to come out with a law. So what did we do? After a lot of deliberations, and all credit to late Mr. Arun Jaitley, who who was actually a statesman. When I told him, sir, instead of fighting with everyone else, let's talk to them. And that's where the dialogue part comes in. He immediately agreed. So we talked to, who all did we talk to? We talked to Naveen Patnaik at Mr. Arun Jaitley's residence. We talked to Mamta Banerjee. We talked to everyone who had guns trained at the central government. We talked to them. And we sold them this idea that this legislation that we are bringing about is beneficial to the state governments, not at all beneficial, or so to say, state doesn't benefit out of it. It's for the state government. Now, again, it's a long story. I'm not narrating it. It's there in my book. But the critical part was that I volunteered to speak to the leader of opposition, Mr. Mallikarjun Kharge. Why? Because I was using my personal connection in the terms of I had worked with him in the labor ministry. I had worked there earlier. And I thought I must have a chat with him and request him not to come to the well of the house. Young friends, you would not appreciate this part. Much of the legislation doesn't happen if the people come to the well, the proceedings are stalled in the parliament. And that was the strategy which the Congress party was adopting to stall bills in the parliament which were not going through. So I sought appointment from Mr. Kharge. He recalled those lovely times that we had together. He gave me nice pakoras and a cup of tea. And then I requested him, sir, I have come here for a request. We are bringing in this legislation. I know you can't politically support this legislation. I have come for a different request. He said, Anil ji, bataiye. So I told him, sir, my request is, if you could request your party members not to come to the well of the house. You know, by this time we had spoken to Mamta Banerjee and Naveen Patnaik, who would agreed to support the bill. But the threat was, if the Congress party came to the well of the house, the bill would not be considered. I don't know what happened, how he managed. Again, there's a chapter in my book. The party did not come to the well of the house and the legislation was cleared. Juxtapose this with the farmers' legislation. What is happening now? And I've written a few articles on this. I've said these legislations are indeed useful for the agriculture of this country, but the manner in which they have been managed leaves less to be desired. There was no attempt to have a dialogue. And I'm so glad you kept this as a subject. In the absence of dialogue, and there was an institutional dialogue to be had in Rajya Sabha, where the bill was rushed through and there was no dialogue. If you don't have dialogue, you will have situations like you have now. The farmers are sitting there and now you can't have dialogue. You know, there is a time for a dialogue. When you take positions, then dialogue becomes difficult. Try and have a dialogue before you firm up your positions. Then it becomes an izzat ka sawal. Whether I go back or he goes back. We didn't do that in coal. We had a dialogue with them and it worked. So my friends, may I tell you, you know, even between Saas and Bahu, mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, when the communication stops and the dialogue stops, it's dangerous. You keep shouting at each other, that's better. But at least there should be communication. By holding communication, every action, every word stands to be misinterpreted. So communication with even your adversary is extremely important if you want to succeed in life. There is nothing personal, so to say. Again, you are doing the best that you can. You have no control over others. But you have to do what you have to do. You know, in civil service, my book, Ethical Dilemmas, begins with this, the quintessential dilemma, as I called, of a civil servant. मुख्तसर सी जिंदगी के अजब से अफसाने हैं, यहाँ तीर भी चलाने हैं, परिंदे भी बचाने हैं. It's difficult. You got to find your way through also, and you have got to, you know, protect people around you. It goes more for the police as well, because you come across situations where it's very difficult to take a call on what to do, what not to do. That's the dilemma that you face. My request and my suggestion to all youngsters here is that listen to your heart. And I have used this phrase, some people have misinterpreted it, become selfish. Selfish in the sense of looking inwards. And the reason is very simple. Koi aadmi apne aap se jhoot nahi bolta. If you look inwards, if you meditate, if you seek answers within, you'll find those answers, because you'll find the right answers. The only thing that you should not do is to don't get into a disconnect with what you believe in and what you're doing. That's where the problem is. That disconnect can be killing, because at least if you want to get into service, and I'm sure it would be equally applicable to the private sector, if your conduct is out of your own convictions, then the chances are that you will succeed. If your conduct is not based on your convictions, you will end up paying a price for something which you don't believe in. It's better to pay a price for it. I mean, there are, as I said, there are 70 or 75 such stories in my book where I talk about personal convictions on having done that, what I believed was correct, and having been prepared for the consequences. Once you do that, I have no doubt you will succeed in life. In any case, success and failure are very subjective in nature. Very, very subjective in nature. What may appear to be a success to me may not be a success to you. And hence, if you can develop this quality in yourself, and it takes time to develop that, you stop expecting things from others. You stop focusing on the outcomes rather than the process. If you're focused on the time that you're in, if you're focused on the process that you're in, if you are focused on your own karma, you will not only be successful, you'll be happy. To me, happiness is much, much more important as compared to whatever is defined as success. The sense of satisfaction that you derive, and I've used the word kick in my book, and I don't want to elaborate that. The kick that you get out of doing some good to others is indescribable. You can't define it. Jo paave wahi jane. You get that, and I'm glad to see Mr. Ribeiro smiling, because he would have got that sense of enormous satisfaction of having done this. He may not have got Padma Bhushan. I think he's much beyond these Padma awards. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, he's much beyond even Bharat Ratna. So it doesn't really matter. These awards don't matter. In my own book, I write the Bharat Ratnas that I got. And I've given many instances where I got that kick for doing something which I felt I ought to have done, and I did it, irrespective of the set of circumstances. So as I said, I can go on and on, but I would rather interact with you youngsters, take on your questions and attempt to answer those questions. Thank you very much for inviting me here. It was a pleasure to be amidst you all, and I look forward to this interactive session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for guiding us on today's session. Here are a few questions from the youth of this country. The first question, sir, what will be the India of your dreams?
The India of my dreams is where every individual and is educated, and he is able to think rationally. He's able to think humanely, and he's able to think about his own future without disturbing or without being antagonistic towards others. I mean, I'm being idealistic here. I would love to see that. I'm sorry to say I'm an optimist, but I'm sorry to say what I see around these days disturbs me a lot, enormously.
Thank you, sir. So question number 2. So what is the way forward to overcome coal mafias, education mafias, and this vicious circle of corruption into our system?
Oh, you've asked me a question where I can write 3 different sets of books, but I will try and answer in next couple of minutes. Let me start with the last part of the corruption part. There's so much talk about corruption, but probably one of my future books will be on tackling corruption through use of technology. I'm convinced that, trying to chase individuals is not going to help matters. You have Lokpal, and if guys are smart, they will fly over to London. They won't stay here in India to be chased. As against that, if you have systems in place, if you use technology, then you can prevent a lot of corrupt practices. And I'm saying that with experience. In coal, there was serious issue. And what we did was we made everything totally transparent, absolutely transparent. Transparency through use of technology prevents corruption phenomenally, because if anyone does anything wrong, he or she will be caught. I'll give you an example. There is a chapter in my book wherein I explain I was asked to head the project monitoring group in the government at a time when all these scams were happening, Commonwealth Games scam, coal scam, all these scams, 2G scams. I was asked by the Prime Minister to head the project monitoring group in the Cabinet Secretariat to fast track projects. Each one of them was more than 1,000 crore at a time when this was happening. So it was a recipe for disaster, because there was so much pressure to do the wrong things. So what did I do? I used technology and created a web-based platform, and I'm not going to go into the details, wherein every decision was put on the web portal almost immediately. Secondly, we digitized the processes so that we could know which paper is pending at which level from how much time to what time. Consequent to which we discovered that a minister in the government was sitting on files worth 54,000 crores. Now, to cut a long story short, this came onto the portal and she had to resign from the cabinet. What I'm trying to convey here, and I can give a long lecture on how technology can be used, that instead of chasing individual culprits, if we put in place systems and use technology to make things transparent, I think we'll be able to handle corruption. Now, I don't want to talk about corruption. Maybe it requires much longer understanding and discussion, but I'm convinced that technology and transparency can actually bring down corruption substantially. Post-retirement, I'm helping a few people to digitize all the processes under which a common man comes to touch with government institutions. Now, imagine a scenario, and I'm still dreaming, some of it has already happened, that if a common man doesn't have to go to government office to get his certificate or anything. We have identified more than 500 processes, of which 300 odd have been digitized. And they are doing phenomenally well in the state of Haryana. Once they succeed there, we hope to take it to other parts of the country. So I know technology can do it. As far as the mafias are concerned, let me generalize it and say, let us understand the nature of the problem first. Normally what we do is, instead of going into the understanding of why of a problem, we start surface scratching. Now, I'll give you the example of coal. Everyone thought that coal mafia is the problem. Now, to me, coal mafia was a symptom. Why does mafia come into being? Mafia comes into being on account of a regulation or shortages. In this particular case, mafia was on account of shortage of coal. And ironically, this country is sitting on 300 billion tons of coal. Our requirement is only about 800 million tons per annum. But for some reasons, it was not being done. So what did we do? We identified the cause of the shortage of coal in this country. We started addressing it. And I'm glad to tell you, within 2 years, we came to a situation where we thought in terms of exporting coal to Bangladesh. Now, when there is a surplus availability of coal, the mafias would not have the margin that they will have in case of paucity. You give me a problem, discuss, go into the depth of a problem, go to the bottom of it, and then you'll start finding solution. Again, there is a full chapter which is titled The Real Coal Story. It's not the coal block auction, but how coal production was increased is the real coal story, how we got rid of mafias. Now, as far as education mafias are concerned, it is much worse. I think in my entire career of 38 years, in every job that was given to me, I made myself redundant by bringing in systems and institutions which took over, and Anil Swarup could be thrown out. I was thrown out of court because I was not needed. But in education, the problem is so deeply entrenched. It is for the first time, and probably in the last year of my career, that I felt that I wish I had more time to handle these mafias in the education sector. There are a few chapters in my book, how I attempted to handle these mafias. In 1 or 2 cases, I succeeded. In 2 other cases, I failed so miserably that a very senior IAS officer had to resign. Again, that's a very long story. I don't want to narrate it here.
Thank you, sir. So, sir, the next question is, mistakes are followed by discouragement. How to face that?
Now, let us look at when you commit a mistake. Let's take a practical situation. You committed a mistake. Now, first, you must accept the fact of a mistake. Now, when I analyze what is happening in this country, I know that the present government is doing some wonderful work, but no one has the courage in the government to accept a mistake. So if there's a mistake committed, imagine if the government was to accept and say, I committed this mistake. It's human to commit mistake. But if you put a carpet over it, then it becomes bigger. I mean, in coal block auction, the first thing that I used to do in the press conference every week that I used to do is to start admission of my mistakes. This is what the mistake that we've committed. So you take the wind out of the sails. For a patrakar or for a journalist, his news is when he knows that you commit a mistake and you are trying to hide it. If you yourself tell that this is a mistake, done. So first effort on a mistake is admit a mistake, because it's human to come. Then try and analyze why that mistake happened. Don't let it happen twice. You can commit a mistake, but don't do it again. If you are prepared to learn, and if you convey this message to the world around that I did commit this mistake, and the world notices that you're making a genuine effort to overcome that mistake, then no one will hold you responsible. I can tell you again, if you read my book, you'll find I have admitted so many mistakes in my career. And no one questions me for those mistakes, because once you admit it, it's very simple. You have a mark here, you put a powder over it. All of us do that, no? You hide it. You expose, injury when exposed appropriately heals faster than, putting something on it. So that's how it is. Now, second is how others treat you. Now, that's a problem here. Much of our problems are on account of what others say. let me take a bit of an aside. I've never understood why people buy Mercedes car. I have bought a Baleno and I love driving that Baleno. And I have sat in Mercedes cars, and I know most of the people who buy Mercedes car don't drive it themselves. So the pleasure of the driver, yet they buy Mercedes car. You know why? I discovered that. I discovered they buy Mercedes car to show to the neighbor that you have a Mercedes car. Much of my problem is an account of what I want to show to others. You don't need it for yourself, but you want to show others that I have a Mercedes car. And this is just an example. Much of what we do is to show off to others what I am. If you are true to yourself, I'm telling you, life will be very simple and easy. Again, an icon is sitting here who didn't bother about what others said. He did what he wanted to do, went ahead and did it. And he's a success story. I don't know, sir, whether you're aware, you find a mention in my book. You know why? There is a reason. When people ask me, and when I say in my book that it pays to be ethical, it pays to be honest, then people ask me, how? I said, the tragedy is you are looking at all rascals and ruffians who went behind the bars. Why don't you look at people like Mr. Ribeiro, who succeeded marvelously in his life and leading an ethical life? So the problem is not with Mr. Ribeiro or those rascals. The problem is with you, where you're looking at. And I come back to my original point. It totally depends on you, where you're looking at. There are all sorts of examples available. I know of 2 chief secretaries of my state having gone behind the bars because they were leading unethical life. Now, I don't talk about them. I talk about people who are having a whale of a time and they're corrupt. Choice is yours. I mean, each path is difficult. Whether you want to follow an honest path or a dishonest path, both are difficult, both are challenges. Choice is with you. In any case, what the others are doing, they will do. But you have to make a choice for yourself.
Thank you, sir. The next question is, sir, in once upon your interview, you said that judiciary was your hurdle because of which you couldn't complete your task because your retirement was just 3 months away. So, sir, according to you, what procedure should we follow to implement the progressive ideas without facing the hurdles, or even after overcoming those hurdles, how to implement those progressive ideas?
No, I hate to tell others what they have to do until they ask me. So I'm nobody to advise the judiciary on what they should do. But I had written a full chapter in my book where I said that it is very easy to show the mirror to others, but we don't look at the mirror ourselves. India is a very peculiar country where this institution called judiciary is not answerable to anybody. They decide whether they are under RTI or not. They say that, I'm sorry for giving this example. I normally don't give it, but since you asked it, can you imagine a country where a sitting Supreme Court judge holds a press conference against a sitting Chief Justice of India? Thereafter, there are sexual harassment allegation cases against him, and the guy is made member of parliament. How can you accept that? I'm nobody to correct it. I can't correct it, but I can't live with it. I find it difficult to live with it. Similarly, in my entire career, I could manage politicians in the sense that in 90% or 95% of the cases, I could convince them with using my arguments or whatever. In 5% cases, they didn't agree with me. That's what democracy is. Let's live with it. But I didn't know, ye judiciary ka unt kis karbat baithega. Because there is, I'm sorry to say that, there is no predictability. So if you have a person who's important, the Supreme Court will set aside everything, give him a hearing, and order his release. There are hundreds of people lying behind the bars in similar situation, and Supreme Court doesn't listen to them. What do you do? Now, my correction to it would be that whereas there is something called a balance of power, there has to be a balance of power here also. I can go on and explain how this could be done, but my sense is that here is an institution which has become extremely powerful and extremely biased. It can be nothing short of a disaster. That's what we are seeing today.
Thank you, sir. So the next question is to a UPSC aspirant asking, sir, in context to your book, Ethical Dilemmas and the GS4 ethics paper, they were thinking to have your guidance. So they were asking that could they get any email ID or somewhere where they could contact you?
Please do that. Please convey my email ID to every person who's attending here. I prided in responding to all the emails to me within 24 hours, even when I was Secretary Government of India. Now it's much easier for me. I respond to every message that comes to me, whether it's WhatsApp or email. swarup8@yahoo.com, SWARUP, number 8@yahoo.com. I would love to contribute whatever I can in understanding. I had a session on GS4 ethics paper 2 days ago. I'll have another session. Those of you that want to join that session, I would love to interact with you all.
Thank you, sir. The next question is that can we have a union of civil servants so that being each one has the progressive ideas and each one faces opposition? So how if they all come together and they help our democracy to actually get developed very easily in a smooth manner?
Union may not be the right word because I'm not too enamored with this concept of union. I have believed, leave aside civil service for a while, I have believed that this country of ours is suffered on account of all the rascals and ruffians coming together and making life difficult for others. The time has come for the good people to come together, sit together, think together, understand each other, understand the good work, appreciate the good work, talk about the good work, demonstrate that good can happen because good is happening, then try and replicate the good work and scale good work. That's what Nexus of Good is all about, a foundation that I've started to get the good people together. It's high time that we got together. Unfortunately, some of the honest people that we have in this country have started believing that apart from them, rest of them are dishonest. That's one of the biggest problems. You know, the honest man thinks that the world is crashing down and everyone around him, which is incorrect, which is grossly incorrect. Nexus of Good is gradually and certainly demonstrating that there are thousands of people who already joined this movement. There are honest people around. The misfortune is that the honest man fights his battle all alone, whereas the rascals and ruffians come together and they do it. This is a very small effort on my part to get the good people together. So far, so good. It's been working well, but I'm sure many, many more people will join in. Now, coming to the civil service, there I have a slightly different view. I've spoken about it and I have written in my book also. I think the selection process, there is a bit of a problem. Though I have a great regard for UPSC, probably the finest institution in the country, it cannot be interfered with. But I do feel that UPSC should be selecting leaders rather than people who can express them brilliantly in those 3 hours. Now, the attributes required of a leader are different from the attributes that the UPSC is seeking. Now, today you have tools for selecting such persons who have leadership qualities in them. We should use them and get leaders. Now, there are some incidental and there are individual efforts like Mr. Ribeiro who do become leaders to be reckoned with. But generally speaking, if I come across civil servants, they are brilliant individuals. They're absolutely brilliant in their own right. They can write very well, they can talk very well, but they can't work as a team. So you don't have team spirit given them. Some of them do develop, but by and large, they don't have the team spirit. By and large, they're not leaders. Hardly anyone will sacrifice his own interest for his colleague. So if you don't do that, how are you a leader? You have to sacrifice for others. If you can't do that, but that's an attribute you don't look for in UPSC. In UPSC, if there's a question, you answer it well, you get good marks, you get into the civil service. That's one. Second, the training both in the NPA as well as in the Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy, you are taught law. You are taught given other inputs. You are never ever, taught, or you can't be taught. You don't develop as a leader. Now that can be done. There are tools available where you can start appreciating the leadership part of your existence. To me, leadership. And third, which I have said, there is no institutional mechanism of mentoring officers. Some people do it. I mentor about 100 IAS officers, number of police officers. But that's a very personal level. Can we institutionalize mentorship? I wrote an article about a week ago, and that has set everyone thinking that why can't we have mentoring? And finally, why can't we have an ombudsman-like structure in the civil service where an officer who's being harassed by others submits to that ombudsman, and if ombudsmans come to the conclusion this is being unnecessarily being harassed, then the association or that body should take the issue on his behalf. So he feels protected. He knows where he can go. So this mentorship, training, etc., very important. Unfortunately, we are missing that in the civil service. Hopefully, something will happen in the near future.
Thank you, sir, for explaining us about Nexus of Good, your organization. And sir, also the next question was similar to what you explained right now. That is civil services exam unnecessarily competitive? If so, what can be some alternative means to entry in civil service?
See, this is where competition has to be there. How do you select from one from the other? So here competition has to be there. You can't do away with competition. What I was suggesting was that the nature of examination has to undergo a change. Right now, it is your capability to analyze. That's also an attribute of a leader. Your capability to mug up, to learn, to produce and reproduce, your command over language, all this is checked, and that's a part of leadership attribute. But leadership is much beyond that. Your capability to motivate, your capability to work as a group, your capability to trust people, your capability to delegate. Now, these are attributes which you can test. Today, there are tests available, you can do that. But we don't test that. We test, there's a question in history, if you write that answer. Your awareness levels are also tested, which is also very good, required for a leader. But it's what is tested now plus. Now, people will say that it would require more time. Now, imagine a scenario, you are selecting officers who are going to head police force in a district and civil services in a district, and you are not prepared to spend a day on that officer. It's tragic. The critical and crucial positions that the officers hold, it is worthwhile spending more time. You can have a filtering system and then select a few, and to them you can push through these inputs and see whether this guy will be capable of handling things. And I've seen service from very close quarters to see that we evolve as brilliant individuals only.
Thank you, sir. So the last question for the day. Sir, who is your role model and the reason for your success today?
It's a very difficult question to answer because I can't pick on one role model. I have always believed that every individual has certain positive things. So starting from my father, from whom I inherited discipline, to me, that's very, very important. Discipline, punctuality, planning, that was my dad. He was my role model to begin with. Then as I moved in the school, I found some other of my friends, certain aspects of their personality which I wanted to copy. Look, starting from very simple thing. There is a friend of mine whose handwriting was very good and mine was terrible. So he became a role model for me for handwriting purposes. I started learning from him and I improved my handwriting. Then there was another friend of mine who was a tremendous debater. As Mr. Rivera was saying, you speak so very well. I remember in BA, when I switched over from science to art, I wanted to become a debater. I didn't have those qualities to begin with. And I used to fumble when I used to go and speak. So I found this friend of mine. I started learning from him. See, he became a role model as a debater for me. So there are different attributes for which I had a number of role models. Mr. Ribeiro doesn't know, but he is also my role model in a particular context. So there are a number of individuals who I have met. I mean, one of my role models is Swami Vivekananda, who I had never met. Obviously, I couldn't have. But when I read his books, he became that part of his personality, of an eclectic Indian society, of the way he interpreted Hindus is something which I can never forget. The way he interpreted religion, I can't forget. So he became a role model in the understanding of religion of Hinduism. So there are a number of role models, and I can't think of, it's like saying, which is the best moment of your life, which is the best, I mean, it works only in films, which event changed you. So that one. And what is the mantra for success? Very simple. Mantra for success is not very difficult one. Look inwards, see what you want to become in life. You may not be able to define the entirety, but you'll be able to define what you want in life. And then see what it takes to become that. Are there people around who become what you want to become? Or you want to be something different? And then chalk out some sort of a roadmap. It will not be a perfect roadmap. And then find what would you need to do to go step by step. The principle is not trying to jump to reach the conclusion. You have to build each brick. You have to love and enjoy those moments. So the mantra is, if you want to succeed in life, enjoy every moment that you are in. Future will be built for you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So there was a small request from the audience that, sir, if you could read out your mail ID and they could note it down.
Okay, my email ID is SWARUP, Swaroop, SWARUP, number 8, Swaroop 8, @yahoo.com. And I'm giving you my telephone number as well, so you can WhatsApp me. My telephone number is 98 999 82388. 98 999 2388. Reach out to me. I'll try and respond to your questions.
Thank you.
If you have occasion to read Ethical Dilemmas of a Civil Servant, I'd love to have your inputs on the book, on how do you look at that book.
Thank you, sir, for guiding us today on this session. And here we would like to welcome our principal, ma'am. हर ज्ञानी को राह है दिखाता, हर अज्ञानी को राह है दिखाता एक ज्ञानी, हर अज्ञानी को राह है दिखाता एक ज्ञानी. हम भूले भटकों को नक्शा वो दिखाता, हम भूले भटकों को नक्शा वो दिखाता. सोचो कौन है वो? वह है आर्य पोदार कॉलेज की प्रिंसिपल डॉक्टर मिसेस शोभना वासुदेवन मैम. Ma'am, we are highly obliged to have you amongst us, and I'll request you to present your views amongst us.
Thank you, Tanvi. What I have to say, I have nothing to say. I was completely mesmerized by the way Mr. Swarup was addressing our students. As usual, good evening, Mr. Ribeiro, sir. Hope you remember me. And it's a nice occasion to stay connected with like-minded people. Thank you, Mr. Swarup, for giving this wonderful, eloquent and at the same time realistic view of the ring side. And that definitely will have to be unfolded amongst the young generation. And Podar being an institution which promotes value and humanity as one of the very important aspects of education, we are indeed grateful to you that you who share the similar opinion could bring out the nuances of civil services and the conflict situations that one comes in. And probably I will add only one word which Mr. Swarup ended his session, enjoy. And I always say, stay excited. So that's what I always say, curiosity, excitement, and try to pamper the child in you. Never allow the child in you to die. That will help you to keep learning. And that exactly is what you also voiced. Thank you very much. And it was nice hearing to you. I thoroughly enjoyed the way you delivered the entire session. Tanvi, thank you very much, beta. You're doing good job and keep doing good job. And congratulations to all the participants. Hope you enjoyed the way I enjoyed too. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, ma'am, for enlightening us with your inspiring views. Now, I would like to call upon Sarvesh, my colleague and co-NSS volunteer, to present the vote of thanks for today's session.
Thank you, Ms. Tanvi. It was indeed an enthralling session by Mr. Anil Swarup for our young democratic citizens. Sir, I sincerely thank you on behalf of all for giving us your insights from your wise mind and rich experiences. This session certainly helps sensitizing the youth in ethical values, emphasizing on good governance, transparency, and accountability. I would like to thank Founder Trustee of Public Concern for Governance Trust, Mr. J.F. Ribeiro. I would acknowledge the presence of our prestigious R.A. Poddar College Principal, Dr. Shobna Vasudevan, our Vice Principal, Ms. Kavita Jaju, Program Officer, Ms. Vinita Pimpre, our Coordinator, Mr. Renston Rodriguez, Ms. Rekha Shahani, Ms. Yashashwi Kokate, teaching and non-teaching staff, in-charge teacher, Ms. Sona, our prestigious R.A. Poddar unit, and last but not least, our audience. I truly appreciate your attendance for today's enlightening webinar. Students, please note, feedback link has been posted on Zoom chat box. Certificate and credit hours will be provided only after submitting your feedback form. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sarvesh. Once a reminder to all the participants to do fill the feedback form posted in Zoom and YouTube chat box respectively. And here I officially announce that our session has come to an end. Thank you, Anil sir, for your presence today and guiding us. Thank you, PCGT. Thank you, participants. Thank you, I.P.S. College. Thank you once again to everyone.
Thank you, Tanvi. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Anil sir, Ribeiro sir, thank you for coming.
What is this? Can I ask Anil for his telephone number, mobile number?
Sir,
98.
My 98 999 98
Yeah.
8 8 98 2388.
9899 8288.
2388. Sir, I've given it here in the chat box also.
Sir,
So
I'll
anyone
send
can-
it to you.
All right.
Rivero, sir, I'll send it to
And
you.
the email and the email also.
Yes, sir, I'll send it. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
I like the talk very much. I think this is the type of talk we should give our students. Yeah.
That's why when Sir Rensdent asked me, I gave Anil sir's name, and after that I told Anil sir, sorry, I'm giving is your name.
Always a pleasure. You know what Rekha ji, she asked me, I have no other option but to say yes to her. Very
Yeah,
difficult
but
to say.
you know, if you keep talking like this to students, I think it will make a lot of difference.
Yes.
But this should be followed up, Rekha.
Yes, sir.
Should.
Sir, sir, that's what I have told Anil sir, that all the students that we cover under PCGT, we need him to talk, and he has agreed always, sir. So today was the first.
Yeah.
Sir,
It was a very wonderful session. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
It's so easy to talk, but so difficult to walk. So
what is the name of the book? What is the name of
the
your
name
book?
of the book is Ethical Dilemmas of a Civil Servant.
Yeah, but you're going to speak on in the next this thing.
Yeah. Saturday is speaking on that.
Ethical.
Sir, I went to office today.
Okay.
Julio, sir?
Yeah.
I went and took all the books that you left behind for me.
Oh. Okay. Yeah. There's no place anymore for my wife in the house. There's no place.
I love even Sir Anil sir's books are excellent. Anil sir, I actually shared with Rensdent the first page where you have written to me.
Sir, with your permission, I will leave Rekha madam. Thank you very much.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you.
I'll also take leave.
Thank you.
Anil sir, before
see
you
you.
go, Anil sir, if you see on our screen, there is PCGT Yashaswita.
Yes, yes.
Sir, she looks after the school programs and the community programs, what we call the Kuchor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. Good
Bye, thank
evening.
you. Thank you.
God bless you.